Perfect.
Okay, Mr. Chair and members, I have a statement to read. Sorry. In accordance with section 200.065, chapter 1010 and chapter 1011 Florida statutes, I'm submitting the proposed tentative balanced budget for the 2021-2022 school year, and I'm recommending the proposed millage to be levied. The purpose of today's meeting is to approve the 2021-2022 proposed tentative budget and proposed millage for advertising, and to set the date, time, and place of the first public hearing on our budget. That meeting will be Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021 at 5:05 p.m. in the school board meeting room. And that should be immediately following our regular monthly board meeting, bi-monthly board meeting.
Rhonda will explain.
Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Rhonda will, you
And
turn it over to
Miss
Rhonda.
Odom is here to
explain the
provide
rollback rate and all, everything.
Thank you, Ms.
She'll
Odom.
walk us through it.
Thank you, Dr. Cerency.
Yes.
I'm only going to take a few minutes of your time today. As Dr. Cerency stated, the purpose of today is just to get your permission to advertise 3 documents in the newspaper so that we can start the trim process and have our first public hearing on the budget on August 3rd, and we were lucky enough to be able to schedule that. Actually, the first public hearing and the second public hearing will be immediately after a scheduled board meeting date, so we won't have to call special meetings to do that for the other 2. So what we're going to publish in the paper, there's 3 documents, and there's going to be a notice of a proposed tax increase, a notice of school tax capital outlay, and the 1-page summation of our entire budget. The first, that notice of proposed tax increase, I've given you a hard copy, and it's Susan was able to put it all on board docs for me too.
Yes, it says notice of proposed tax increase at the top.
Thank you.
Like last year, we're having to publish a notice of tax increase instead of a notice of budget hearing. And the rollback rate determines whether we have a proposed tax increase or not. And I did give each one of you a handout that is our
Has the
rollback
rate.
rate.
Yeah.
And that's what I need to discuss first. And what the rollback rate is a millage rate that it would take to bring into the district the same amount of tax revenue that we received last year, but it excludes the cost of any type of new construction in the district or in the county.
Say that one more time, millage rate that it would take
To bring into the district the same amount of tax revenue that we received last year, but excluding any type of new construction that occurred. So our rollback rate, as you can see from the handout, is 5.6669 mills. And our actual millage rate last year was 5.78 mills. So this is an increase of 0.1131 mills from the rollback rate. And yet, however, it's a decrease of the actual millage. On page 2 of the rollback rate handout, you'll see that our actual millage was 5.897, and we're setting a millage rate this year of 5.780, which is a decrease of 0.117. But because it was an increase over the rollback rate, we have to advertise as a proposed tax increase instead of a budget hearing. I always hate that when that occurs, but one of the reasons that you have to do that according to trim guidelines is because this new rate that's set by the legislature, the 5.78 mills, will bring in 102% of the tax revenue last year, even though it's a lower millage rate because our property values have gone up so much over the past year.
Right.
This lower millage rate is still going to bring in more revenue than we received last year. So if you look at page 3 of the handout, I've given you some examples of, page 3 of the rollback rate, some examples of some property tax values. So if you've got
Used to it.
someone whose appraised value of property was $100,000, if the value of his home didn't go up, he's actually going to pay less to the school district by $8.77 because we did go down on our millage rate. However, because that value of our property has increased in Putnam County, this lower millage rate will still bring in more tax revenue, like I mentioned, and thus we got to do the tax increase. And I always hate to put that in the newspaper that we're doing a tax increase, but those are the laws that we have to work with when we're
Even
doing the
though-
trim.
yeah, and
Yes.
they're not gonna probably understand it any more than I do.
It's much more dramatic in other places than it is here.
Yeah.
Yes. And we are setting the rate that was set by the state. We're doing the required local effort that they set for our district and everything, and we have to set those rates. We have to levy them in order to bring in the FEFP, which is over $60 million for the district. So we can never go below what they've suggested or anything. The second item being discussed in, being advertised in the paper is the notice of tax for school capital outlay. That's a one-page document that lists out all the varying type projects that we may or may not spend the 1.5 mil for capital outlay on. Just because it's in the paper doesn't mean we necessarily have to spend every one of those categories, but if we don't list it in the newspaper, we can't go outside whatever's in that bracket of things unless we have another public hearing. Advertise it in the newspaper again that we're making a change to it and have another public hearing. So we list as much as possible in there, and they give us very specific titles that we can put in there and how to lay things out. So what we are proposing this year to spend the 1.5 mils for capital outlay purposes is, well, first off, it'll bring in $7,525,598, and that should be on that document. It'll show in the paper that it brings in that much. We are, of course, again, funding the maintenance department, but we're funding them at $2.3 million this year, which is much lower than we normally do. Normally, it's about 3.6, but we had several of the people were moved into the CRISA funds for this year. We're paying an allowed portion of our property insurance of $679,000. We're paying the current year portion of our master purchase agreement on the 5-year bus loan of $456,000. We're paying the current year portion of our master purchase agreement for our energy retrofit project of $541,000. We are actually going to set aside some funds into a reserve account to help build up the funds that we will need in order to next year apply for special facility funds, because when we go out and request the special facility funds from the Department of Education, we have to agree to provide 1 mil of our capital outlay millage every year. So I'm actually setting aside $3 million into a reserve account for that.
How much?
$3 million. And then the balance of it, which is roughly $550,000, I've put back into the district maintenance renovation repair account strip so that they can take care of any needs above those that they fund from their original budget.
Rhonda, that first one says construction and remodeling. Does that mean remodeling of a new junior, senior high, or building a new junior, senior?
No, the one building on there is listed separately as new construction. When they consider remodeling and everything, it's any facilities that we currently have, that, we can, any type, whether it's HVAC or whether they need to go in there and redo,
Do we know which
floor.
one?
It's to cover all,
Every-
it's to
every
cover all of them in
Okay, well, it
case
just
something
said
happens.
one, so
Oh, that would be the construction. I'm sorry, I didn't have the document in front of me. I was looking at the next one where we're talking about maintenance and renovation of
Yeah,
all
okay.
facilities.
Every
Yes, that would
facility
be-
has
That would be
remodeling.
whichever school that we decide to build. If we receive the special facility fundings, that would be whichever school we decide to build first on that plan that Thomas has out there.
Yes, okay.
So that's the $3 million that I'm talking about that I've set aside to go toward. If we get the special facility funds, then we'll then use some of these funds to provide to the state. And we would do that again with next year's budget so that we would have enough to, to do that 1 mil that they require. The third and final document that will go in the newspaper is the one-page condensed budget with all of our funds across it. And you all know from experience, actually, there's hundreds and even thousands of lines of account strips. We can do the big booklet later on, but this is just condensing it down, and this is what the state requires that's put in the paper. As you can see from the ad, it's our budget by fund source. We're looking at the current operating budget, which is the general fund, that's that first column after the headings. Our budget for the general fund is $100,174,098.45. Now, when we include in special revenue, debt, capital, and all the NEFAC funds, our entire district budget is $199,634,000 and some change. And really, the only one that general fund is the baby, and that's our main operating fund and what we spend so much time on. So I was just going to call your attention like I do every year, and that's why I gave you the explanation of fund balance. You'll see in that column of general fund about midway, well, quarter of the way down, it said fund balances next position, July 1. You'll see that we have a year-end fund balance of $12,714,803.47.
But that says 2020.
I need to correct
Is that what so it's supposed to be 2021?
July 1st. Yes,
Okay.
I will correct that, and we'll make note in here, thank you.
Does this
for-
include NEFAC, Rhonda? Does this include NEFAC?
Not the first column,
Not
but
the
the whole,
first column.
the whole budget does.
So
The,
that's very deceiving in itself.
It is, it truly is.
But
We're one of the only 2 districts in the state that have a consortium within our records and everything, so.
But it's good for the county, because that's a nice payroll that goes back in Putnam County.
It is. But if you see the fund balance sheet, I wanted to break down how that 12 million lays out. And
What's that one look like?
that's explanation of
It's
general
one page.
fund balance.
Got
And we have, that's comprised of a reserve for state and local projects. And this is money with strings attached. If it's given to us in a certain way, we have to save the leftover. And sometimes it could take 2 or 3 years to spend it out. But this would be the FEFP categoricals like reading and mental health and safe schools, and there's a whole list of them. So balances left in that, or any type of other things that the school board, any type of other projects that the school board has assigned or put in a list of things that we feel like we need to do and everything. If there's a balance there, it stays in a project until the project is completed. We've got a reserve for carryover purchase orders. That was a little higher than last year, but when I did the purchase order encumbrance roll in the general fund, we had $1,036,317. And so that's money that's already spoken for, as the purchase orders have been put on, the items have been ordered, but they haven't been received and paid for yet. We got a reserve for inventory after the inventory count of $236,879. And of course, that's not cash on hand, that's not cash, that's items that we actually have inventory on. It includes things like diesel fuel, gasoline, because we've done away with the warehouse, so we don't have a whole stock of like paper supplies and things like that, but maintenance has an inventory and transportation has an inventory. And of course, over in the school food column, they have an inventory too. We've also got our carryover 3% mandated unreserved fund balance in there, $2.5 million. And we've got an unreserved fund balance of, in the beginning, as the year ended, of $3,976,000. That's an amount that was left unspent or unencumbered after all revenues received for the year and all budgets, everything closed out being spent. So what we do when we start this whole budgeting process, we start with this June 30th true actual carryover fund balance, and then we put in all of our budgeted revenues from the state and local, and then we put in everybody's budget request, utilities, everything. And once all that's said and done, then I come up with an estimated projected June 30th, 2022 year-end fund balance. And that is $5,793,558.86. I've budgeted in that on this sheet also. Did you have?
Well, I don't know if now's the right time to ask it, but it's on here. The reserve, wait a minute, for FTE,
Yeah, that's
Do we
the
use-
amounts I'm fixing to talk about, yeah.
okay, so because our enrollment's so much lower than it has been,
We were
do
held
we ever have
harm.
to go into that?
I'll talk
Okay,
briefly about
okay,
all
that's
these.
fine.
Yeah,
You do it on your own? I
no,
just
no,
wanted
that's
to
fine,
remember
but
that.
yeah, I've got a contingency reserve for the FTE audit now. We've talked about that. That is when they come in and they audit teacher certification, school bus riders, and
Okay, that's
everything.
something totally
So that's a large amount this year. Normally, I only budget about 25,000, but transportation had a big finding, and so did teacher certification, and it was roughly about $200,000 worth of findings. And what they do, it takes them a year after the findings, then they, then after the findings, they
We're the-
take it out of our next year's FEFP.
We're the largest employment agency in Putnam County. We're gonna have problems.
Well,
It just happens, and
I understand that, but it doesn't have to happen that big.
they don't
I-
pay, well,
And it hasn't in a
but
long
what
time.
what I've found in my experience, as Rick's finding, is when auditors come in, they don't come in to not find something. They're gonna find something.
We know,
because
they're right, that's college right now driving us crazy.
Yeah, okay.
But,
I know there were, I'm trying to think back, because that was many, many months ago, and I know the board chair was here, and Thomas and Sharon Spell was here, and Tanya Whitehurst were, because that's where the findings were. But I think some of the findings in transportation was the 2-mile, we transported students
I
and
remember
claimed them
that.
2
Within the
miles.
2-mile limit
2-mile
for safety
limit,
reasons.
and,
I just think though that with teacher certification, there shouldn't be anything wrong with that if we've done our due diligence.
a
when
lot
we're
of
hiring
things,
them.
yeah, a lot of things that happen there.
That
We
hopefully
can't
was
lay it on the,
corrected
yeah.
since that
We
finding.
can't lay it on the HR department, even though it's teacher certification. A lot of it was teachers teaching out of field, and the letters not being sent out to the students that they had a teacher
Right,
teaching
but-
out of field.
But we know now,
But-
and so
Yeah,
we need to
and
make sure it
I'd be
gets done.
happy, I know since you probably, I guess it was Holly that was at that meeting and everything, I'll be happy to share all the documents with each of y'all if y'all want to see it and how that dollar amount came about and everything. It'll list out different categories, and some of the things,
I believe you.
some of the things, there were, other findings other than this teacher certification and transportation. Individual at the school level, if a student didn't have an IEP done or on the file on the
Yeah,
day
that-
they came and looked, there
that's
were
real
findings like that.
important.
There were findings like that too,
That's federal
so.
government.
So, we have that audit every year, and we send out to the principals everything that they're going to come in and, look at and everything. But I'm not sure what exactly happened this year. It's usually anywhere from $6,000 to $15,000 or $20,000 each year. But it was a big hit this year. And the biggest majority of that was in transportation, so. But I'll talk briefly about this $5.7 million. It's a lot less than what we ended the year with, but that's normal because we're expecting that that $4.8 million of projects in the beginning of the year, that they're going to continue to use it and spend it out, and hopefully, so I don't have any of that budgeted left, because I want them to spend the projects and that to be gone. I want the encumbrances to be the items to get in and get paid out. So just those two items alone are over $5.9 million of the cause of that reduction. And then, of course, we have an increased retirement rate this year. We've got increased utility cost. I've got estimations from FPL and Clay on, what their rate increase will be. We know that gas and diesel is going up, so we've got increased operating cost. We've got to deal with the minimum wage increase, so, we've already set aside some for that. And we also provided the automatic step increases for instructional and classified beginning on July 1, and we budgeted for that. Our salary schedules show the automatic steps, so we go ahead and do that each year. So, the New Year's flexible budget from the state's not enough to cover that, so that also helps, reduces our fund balance some also. But still, with the totality of the expenditures and projected reserves and everything, we're looking at a projected 6.86% financial condition ratio. Now, we know that we'll definitely pay out the McKay scholarships. That family empowerment scholarships that you'll see on that handout is a huge amount. I budgeted $1 million for it. The very first year it came about, which was year before last, I didn't know anything about it. I had been budgeting for McKay for years, and then this was a new one, and it hit us at about $400,000, and I hadn't budgeted a reserve for it.
And where does that go? What is that? Family?
These are families that, just like McKay, where they've chosen to send their child to a different school, whether, I guess, a public or private school, and they're still students in our county, so we have to account for it in our budget and have the budgeted, we
FTE
receive the
goes with-
revenue for it, but when they actually post in the third calculation, they'll then remove the funds that instead of sending them to us, they're going to send them directly to those schools
The
that have those
FTE
students.
travels with the student.
So we could be sending money to Penile.
I think with the family empowerment, with McKay, I don't think it could be,
Private?
I don't,
It would have to be a
it could be
a
private, it couldn't
handicap.
be religious or anything like that, if I'm not mistaken.
okay,
But,
I see what
but I
you're
think with family empowerment now, they have really relaxed the guidelines, and this year it's gonna be even more than it was. I can't recall off the top of my head, Rick, can you?
Because we don't
They
have
combined
any
it.
schools to send them to.
Yeah, we do
except-
now.
Well, second
Couple
year,
of new.
second year of this family empowerment, so I tried to be smart and budget this past year 500,000, since they took away 400,000 first. When it actually came in, it was close to 900,000. So the family empowerment is a huge animal there, and the legislature even relaxed the requirements. Where before you had to be at the poverty level to receive it, now I think was it 100,000, Rick? If a combined couple made less than $100,000, they could still apply for and qualify for it. So I don't know, I budgeted $1 million, and I hope that's enough and everything.
With Rhonda being the president of the Florida Finance Directors for several years, I've watched her work for many years, and I know and I have confidence with what I see here that she's got a buffer in allocated in everything that she does for safety and security reasons, and we're gonna have to look closely and follow closely these recommendations from what I understand in order to qualify for the special facilities money. So we've got to
Yeah.
really pay attention to what they're
appreciate that,
telling us
David.
here. So I just thought I would lay that in there.
Yeah, and school finance is getting more and more difficult every year. It truly is. But it's an animal of its own. But at the first public hearing on the budget that's scheduled for Tuesday, August 3rd, if you all want, we can go in greater detail on the budget, additional handouts. I'll provide more printouts, and we can discuss other things. And you'll have a chance at that meeting to amend the budget any way that you see fit, if you so desire. And at that meeting also, we'll set the time and place for the final public hearing on the budget. So I guess unless any of you have more questions for me, the purpose of today's meeting on the budget, I know we've got some other things on the agenda, was strictly to seek permission to advertise these 3 pages in the newspaper. And that's going to be the proposed tax increase, the notice of tax for school capital outlay, and the budget hearing, the budget summary ad, and the newspaper will publish that on Thursday, July 29th. And we had to choose that date because with trim guidelines, you have to, on the date, when it's actually published in the paper, then you are required to hold your first public hearing between 2 and 5 days after the ads come out in the paper, and 5 days will be that Tuesday, August the 3rd. So we're cutting it to the wire there.
Madam, I don't know that I need to make a motion, but will I need to make a motion to advertise, Lex?
Yeah,
I make a motion that we go ahead and advertise
the 3 items that,
that everything that we have here on this sheet of paper that is intended to be advertised.
And I'll change that one date before I take it to the paper, so
That's a heck of a
instead of saying July 1st, 2020, it'll be July 1st, 2021.
I'll second Mr. Buckles' motion.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second on our would be our consent agenda number 1? Wait, which one is it? Is it just the,
There's 3 pages.
Presentation and documentation.
Yeah, this is,
Yeah, I think
Right.
normally
Me
you
too.
say advertise.
B2, okay. We have a recommendation and a second. We need a roll call then now?
District 1, absent. District 2,
Advertise.
District 3, absent. District 4,
Advertise.
District 5,
advertise.
okay. Decision,
We have 3-0.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Rhonda. All right, next on our,
Excuse me a minute. Mr. Chairman, could I ask that we break for a minute or two? I need to take a break.
back to order. All right, which direction are we going now?
Consent agenda.
The consent agenda. Yeah, thank you. Do we have anything to pull from the consent agenda?
I don't, Mr. Vice Chair.
I don't either. I had a conversation with the superintendent prior to the meeting, and I don't have anything to pull.
And I don't have anything as well.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass a resolution for sale of real estate.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. Here's a second.
I'll second it.
We have a second from Ms. Crawford. Any discussion?
And they're doing that for, all three of those items. Is that your motion, David?
That is my
Well, you
motion.
just said real estate.
I said real estate, but I can amend that. I'll amend that motion that we approve the consent agenda as provided. And I know that the superintendent will, if there are any problems, he would let us know in amending this in the future if we need to. But anyway, I approve, I make a motion to approve this consent agenda.
The second, accept the.
Well, I have a question now that that's been added. I have some discussion. Okay, and I did not look at the document again. I don't remember seeing that PDF, but I just wanted to make sure that all the grammatical errors and changes were made to that document that I sent in because we had to pull it because it was in terrible shape.
You talking about the equity?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right here, so.
You've got it right there?
Yeah,
So-
I got
Oh, okay, because it was a hot mess, so, okay,
I got the one that's currently on there now.
and it's fine.
Looks good to me, but you had a chance to
Yeah,
review
and then
it.
Thomas also put it again too, so.
Okay,
Okay.
yes, I second that.
Okay.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none, it's 3-0. And can we close now?
You can adjourn as long as we don't have.
Do we have any other questions or any comments?
I know that the superintendent, if he has anything going, to present to us, he'll let us know. And
That is the sale of the property, of course, you stated that, but we have added Jenkins,
that is,
the old Jenkins, to the list of properties to put up for sale.
Okay, seeing no questions, this meeting's adjourned.
Yeah.